Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we talk the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. From the latest signings to this year's breakout stars and all the news in between. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
Hey guys, I'm Alex.
Yeah, so, what's up, man?
Not too much. How you doing?
Doing good. Yesterday was
It's a rough day for sports, right?
not only that, but it was also a rough day for me because I had to move to another apartment.
Oh, okay.
So,
Always about you, Jeremy.
No, don't worry. We'll get into football talk. I just wanted to vent a little bit. I literally took the whole day to move everything from my room to my other place. And from 8 o'clock in the morning, when I woke up, started moving until like 4 p.m. I did not eat a single thing, and I was hungry.
You didn't eat a single thing?
I did not eat a single thing, dude.
What the heck, man?
And it was like triple digits outside. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking.
I don't know what you were thinking either, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, but everything went good.
I'm glad you're all moved in and stuff, I guess.
Well, kind of. I just got to unpack most of the things, but yeah. How was your day?
Yesterday, I had a couple podcasts here with my co-host Ben on sports and soccer. And they went well. It was really hot yesterday, as you said before. It was 106 here yesterday. Yes. And so it was pretty hot. It was pretty warm in here. But we got done relatively easily yesterday. And I had work at one of my jobs yesterday, so I went and did that. And I just kind of hung out the rest of the day, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get things started, shall we? Okay. Yeah. Tell us the people we have today, man.
Well, we talked about yesterday on the sports show on a somber note to start off with, but we're going to try to make it a happy occasion. The great defensive coordinator and coach that he was, former NFL and head coach with the Eagles, Buddy Ryan, passed away yesterday at the age of 85. For those of you who maybe don't know him as a football coach, he is the father of Rex and Rob Ryan, who are both currently on the Buffalo Bills coaching staff. Rex obviously being the head coach, and Rob being I think he's an assistant to the defense. Buddy Ryan obviously was the innovator and creator of the 46 defense, the 46 zone, which is going to lead to our conversation of, in our opinion, the best single-year defensive efforts in teams throughout NFL history.
It's going to be a good discussion. I can't wait for that.
Exactly, but he was the innovator of what many say is the best defense in one single year of all time, the 85 Bears. He was also the innovator. He was on the coaching staff of the Jets that won Super Bowl III with Joe Namath against the Colts. And not many people know these names, but he was an innovator. These aren't included, unfortunately. These are not included in the best defenses of all time. But he was the reason behind the famous cheeseburger blitz and the Taco Bell blitz of that team in that decade. And also, many people don't know he was a defensive backs coach, I believe. He was responsible for the 1970s crushing Vikings defense, the Purple People Eaters. Purple People Eaters. So
that's a tongue twister.
It is, yeah. The Purple People Eaters consisted of a very, very good defensive line. They were a great defense, played in a Super Bowl there in the early 70s against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They went to 4 Super Bowls throughout, I think, that run of defense. They lost all 4 of them, unfortunately. But they didn't lose 4 in a row like the Bills to tie it all back to the Ryans there. Boom. Past and present. Boom, Bills. So we're going to talk about the defenses. We're going to talk a little bit about Buddy Ryan here, just kind of give you our thoughts on him. And then we're going to talk Doug Baldwin got an extension yesterday, as well as a retirement today of a pretty. I like this guy. We'll get into it, but he was a fun guy to watch.
Corey Redding,
fun guy to watch. Most recently with the Cardinals, but they did cut him. So we're going to get into that. But first, we're going to start with the news yesterday that came out that Buddy Ryan unfortunately did pass away at the age of 85. Sorry, I was going to say 86 for a second.
I was like to say, you just said it.
Yeah. Well, I just said a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yes, the architect of perhaps the greatest defense in NFL history and a pair of current coaches in the NFL, his sons. He wasn't very shy about the way he coached either. So he did. It didn't come out yesterday, but he did unfortunately pass away after a lengthy battle with cancer. So, what do you know of Buddy Ryan? Like, what do you think of when you hear Buddy Ryan's name? Obviously, when I hear Buddy Ryan's name, I think, the '85 Bears. I think about him punching. I forget Gilchrist. I want to say when they're on the Oilers coaching staff, punching Gilchrist in the face. Things like that just make me laugh. What reminds you? What do you think of when you hear Buddy Ryan's name?
When I hear Buddy Ryan's name, all I think about is defensive genius. All I think about, as you said, those little moments, those little funny moments that you said with the Oilers. But yeah, remember, this is a guy that coached for 2 decades and a half, more than 26 seasons, and.
Oh, yeah, he coached for a very long time.
Yeah,
he was very
successful.
Time.
And 2-time Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 20.
Kevin Gilbride, not Gilchrist. Kevin Gilbride.
Okay.
He tried to punch him. It was hilarious.
Yeah, you remember, he won 2 Super Bowls as a coach. Super Bowl 3, as you previously said, with the New York Jets,
led by Joe Namath.
Joe Namath. Broadway Joe.
Broadway Joe. I was saying New York Jets for some reason.
And then Super Bowl 20.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, he is just... It's a shame that, we lost a legend.
Mm-hmm.
But, he did battle cancer, and cancer is a tough disease to fight.
I'm sure he battled it just the same way he coached.
Oh, yeah.
Are
you kidding me? Like,
just straight at it, so
yeah,
as a matter of fact and nonchalant. And
yeah, he was a fighter. And that's pretty much all I can say about Buddy Ryan, man. There's just so much to say about him. I just can't put it all into like one single sentence, Well, there's so much to say,
It's true, yeah. I'm going to give you real quick Rex Ryan's statement, and I'm going to give you some of the best Buddy Ryan quotes of all time. Okay, so real quick, Rex did say, he came out in a statement, said, but he says he was many things to many people: outstanding coach, mentor, fierce competitor, father figure, faithful friend, and the list goes on. But to me and my brothers, Rob and Jim, he was so much more. He was everything you wanted in a dad. Tough when he had to be, compassionate when he didn't necessarily expect it, when you didn't necessarily expect it, and a loving teacher and confidant who cherished his family. He was truly our hero. So you could tell they all, if you ever watched the Hard Knocks with the Jets, Buddy came to a couple of the practices, and Rex just looked like he adored that guy. Like he said, he did really just look like he was his hero. But to the fun stuff here, okay? Some of the best quotes from Buddy Ryan as a coach, or just in the NFL in general. So he's talking about the trading of Ernest Jackson, running back on his team. He says, trading Ernest Jackson for a 6-pack. It doesn't even have to be cold. That's a good one, right?
Yeah.
All right. Dumb guys sulk and pout. You never see smart guys pout. Hey, they are paid very well. If you don't do the job, someone's got to go get them. The good players always react the way they should. So, just a typical one. Now, these are mixed, funny, and not. This one I like. Quote, football kickers are like taxi cabs. You can always go out and hire another one.
Oh, that's so great, man. Buddy Ryan was such a... He was a character, too. Just about those quotes.
So one more serious and one more funny. Here we go. This is a more serious one. It says, coaches didn't like it because it made them look bad. We hit a lot of quarterbacks, and that was one of the things coaches were a little tender about. So some people were like, they were trying to get on him because they're like, oh, all you do is blitz every down. How is that even fair? And he goes, throw slants. It's not my problem. You guys don't have time to do your plays. And one more funny one. Excuse me. We might have had the worst bunch of guys together we've ever seen on a football team. I don't know what anybody else has, but I'd trade mine with anybody. Sight unseen. So he's saying the team was so bad he would trade him for another team that he didn't have to see the guys.
Wow.
He's just a funny guy, man.
He was funny. Like I said earlier, he is a genius too.
Mm-hmm. And you see a lot of what he did too with defenses nowadays. Dom Capers' psycho front that he uses there.
Yeah, he influenced the defense today.
Mm-hmm. The way that Rex Ryan calls plays, Todd
Rob
Bowles,
Ryan,
Rob Ryan, Romeo Cornell is a not a descendant, but he's somebody who learned in his shadow growing up. Buddy Ryan was one of you look at guys like Dom Capers, Bruce Arians, the way Rex Ryan called defense when he was in with the Ravens in 2000, which we'll get into after our break with our top seasons defenses. You look at them and how innovative they were. It all came in a sense from Buddy, and he learned from somebody too. And I apologize for not knowing exactly who that might have been in terms of who really maybe influenced him in the way he called plays. But he was really one of the first defensive coordinators that was just innovative in what he did.
Yeah, and then I actually want to talk about his tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, he transformed that team. They were mediocre before he got there.
He was responsible. He was a coach during the body bag game, right?
Yeah, I think it's Bounty Bowl. I think it's called the Bounty Bowl.
I'm sorry, the body bag game was a Redskins game.
Yeah,
the Bounty Bowl.
Against the Cowboys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, on Thanksgiving Day, I believe. Yeah, and this team, Philadelphia Eagles, back in the early, I think late '80s, early '90s, when he was the coach. Well, before that, they had a tough time selling out games, and then when he became the coach, he dramatically transformed that team into a really good playoff team. And yeah, there's just so much you can say about Buddy Ryan. The Chicago Bears.
Yes,
obviously,
of course.
Everyone knows the Minnesota Vikings, the purple people eaters. Okay, I was trying to say that, not get it on the tongue twister. And leading 3 teams to the Super Bowl. Also, obviously Chicago Bears is one of them. New York Jets is another one. And Minnesota Vikings,
yes.
when he was there also. And he's just
somebody you can't forget, man.
You can't forget, man. And if you don't, and if any of you guys don't even know a thing about Buddy Ryan, is this like your first time, actually, like if you know him as just like Rex Ryan's and Rob Ryan's father, I suggest to watch some videos, do some research on this guy, because honestly, especially for you young guys out there, pursuing football in high school or maybe even college, trust me, this guy he's probably one of the greatest to ever do it.
Yeah, you can't write the history of the NFL without inclusions of Buddy Ryan.
Especially the way defense is played nowadays. Yeah, you just can't do it.
Yeah, man. It's sad, and he'll be missed.
Yeah, he will.
We'll take a quick break here, guys, at the Golden State Media Concepts football podcast. We'll be right back, and like we said, we're going to rank, at least I'm going to read some off of, in my opinion, some of the best single-season defenses of all time. So you guys don't go anywhere. We will be right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts football podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. We're going to get into some of the best defenses, single-season defenses of all time. So I do know that you decided to look for some. How would you like to do this? Would you like me to say some? Would you like to say some? How would you like to go about this?
I'm going to let you decide this. Be your own person. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Wow. I'm kidding. No, Now, you should probably say some defenses on your list, and
Okay.
then I'll say some, and then we'll discuss,
Well-
like how we've been doing the award shows,
Okay.
preview shows. So, yeah.
Let's start off by saying I'm sure you and I both agree that the best single-season defense of all time was the 85 Bears.
Yes. I don't think we need to discuss that any further.
Not really. 85 Bears finished first overall in points scored by team, like allowing. First overall allowed yardage. First overall in turnovers. First overall in almost every category. Interceptions, sacks, rushing touchdowns allowed, rushing yards allowed. Third in TDs allowed, third in yards allowed. Pretty good defense, to say the least. They only allowed. Take a look. There's one stat I want to find that's very just impressive. They only allowed a 300-yard passer once all season.
Did they?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Impressive.
Yeah, they were pretty impressive, you could say. You could say the least, man. And they obviously only lost one game to the Dolphins. Actually, they allowed... Yeah, even Marino didn't throw for 300 yards that game.
Yeah, they lost one game that year.
Yes, they did. To the Dolphins on Monday or Sunday night, I want to say. And it was there was only one team that could beat them. They figured out the blueprint. They got them. They didn't lose until week 13. It's pretty impressive, if you ask me. They ended up going 18-1. They won the Super Bowl, of course, against the New England Patriots. Pretty handedly too. It wasn't even really a competition, to be honest.
Not only that, you can't forget William the Refrigerator Perry.
Yeah, William the Refrigerator Perry.
Can't forget about him. Mike Singletary, Ron Rivera, who is the current coach for the Carolina Panthers. Mike Singletary, who has been who coached in the league as well, and he's actually coming back to the sidelines next season.
We'll talk about that next episode.
We're talking about it in the next episode, so don't go anywhere. But I had to bring him up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, another defense I hold pretty highly, and I don't only do this because I'm a Steeler fan. Many agree that the 1970s Steel Curtain was one of, if not the best defense of all time when you look at body of work. There's a lot of single season good defenses, and you look at them and and what they did over an amount of time. It's hard to pick between the 74, the 75, and 76 years. Many say that 76 is the best, although they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. They did start the season 1-4, and they lost Terry Bradshaw. That's the reason they started so badly. But they needed to win 9 straight just to make the playoffs, and they did, surrendering only 28 points over 9 games with 5 shutouts. And the team only allowed a total of 2 touchdowns over a 9-week period. Pretty good, right? And then you have, obviously, Hall of Famers, Joe Green, L.C. Greenwood, Jack Lambert, Jack Ham, Mel Blount. Pretty good, team. They ended up losing the AFC Championship to the Raiders that year, who did win the Super Bowl. But I often look at the 75 Steelers as a better team. They gave up only
74 or 75?
75.
Okay.
They only gave up 162 points. That's what kind of sets the difference to me. 74 was the first Super Bowl win, but they weren't as dominant until 75 when they won. They allowed 162 compared to 189 in 74. They went 12-2. They won 3 straight playoff games over pretty good teams: the Baltimore Colts, the Raiders, and the Cowboys. And they only gave up 37 points in all 3 of those games. It's pretty good, if you ask me. Their stat line was just insane in 75. They were ranked 4th in yardage, number 2 in points scored allowed, number 1 in first downs allowed, number 1 in TDs allowed, number 4 in interceptions. They, there's little to be said if you have to, in terms of trying to convince somebody that was a good defense.
No, you can make an argument for the 76, 74 Steelers.
You can make an argument for every year of that decade for them.
You can. Like the 74 Steelers defense, they led, in yards allowed, takeaways, sacks, and opponent passer rating. But the 76 Steelers, they were obviously worse in those categories. But they allowed...
But not far, though.
Not that far. But they did allow fewer points, 51 fewer points. They only allowed 28 points over their last 9 games, to make that playoff run. Yeah. And they did have that NFL record of 5 shutouts.
Yes, they did.
That year.
Yeah. Which, it still stands.
It still stands, yeah. Which is pretty impressive nowadays if you think about it.
That was 76, you said, or 75?
That was the 76.
Yeah, so you're looking at That's 40 years ago.
Can you imagine a team now getting like 5 shutouts? Like it's hard to get 1 or 2 in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, we move towards another best defense in my opinion, and it's probably the best defense in my opinion in the last couple decades, and I would say the 2000 Ravens. The 2000 Ravens. Look at some of these stat lines, okay? The Ravens held opponents to 2.69 yards per rush. That's the best, and that still stands. The best since the 51 Giants, which is a different game then, you know? They gave up only 970 rushing yards and never allowed a 100-yard rusher. Think about, got certain, like one running back can have more yards than 970, Although that season they faced the likes of Emmitt Smith, Curtis Martin, Jerome Bettis, Eddie George, Tiki Barber, Fred Taylor, and Corey Dillon.
That is quite the slate of running backs they faced.
Yeah.
And remember most of those guys were in their prime too.
Yeah, you have Ray Lewis. Oh, you talking about the running backs?
I'm talking about the running backs they played against.
Oh, yeah. Well, Emmitt necessarily wasn't.
Well, that's why I said most of them.
Jerome, Eddie George was. Tiki Barber, Fred Taylor was for sure.
Yeah, Fred Taylor was a stud for Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he Jeff Fisher, who coached 3 games against him that year with the Titans, he said that they're probably the best defense he had ever seen, excluding, he got a Super Bowl ring with the 85 Bears. He was on that team.
Yeah, but you got to remember, this defensive staff, it was stacked.
The coaching staff?
Yeah,
oh
Marvin
my God,
Lewis,
yeah.
Jack Del Rio, Mike Smith, Rex Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's unbelievable. That's like cheating.
Don't look past the defense either. You have arguably one of the best middle linebackers of all time with Ray Lewis, who was in the middle, because I say his whole career was honestly a prime for him, but starting that journey, you got Tony Siragusa there in the middle, who is one of the best defensive linemen on a single defense of all time, in my opinion. And, I mean, honestly, you could have nobody else on that defense and still look at as dominant with Ray Lewis and Tony Siragusa. Siragusa was a guy who you didn't want to tackle you because he was a defensive lineman, so he was usually tackling running backs, and he would get you, and then he would usually fall on top of you. And and that's not...
He was a big man, too.
Yeah,
still is.
He still is a big man, yeah. That's not fun, And, yeah, you mentioned the coaching staff, too. You have 1, 2...
3 of them are head coaches.
3 current head coaches, and Mike Smith isn't far removed from his long tenure with the Falcons.
He has some success there too. Led him to an AFC Championship game.
Yeah. And not to mention the 2000 Ravens in the postseason allowed an average of 4 offensive points per game, and in the Super Bowl they held the Giants without an offensive touchdown.
Yes,
they allowed only 165 points, the fewest by any team in a 16-game stretch of all time, and the defense had a little help from the offense. I guess. I mean, it ranks 16th, but...
Do you remember the quarterback for that team?
Do you mean the quarterback that won the Super Bowl with them?
Yeah, for 2000 Ravens, yeah.
Trent Dilfer.
Yes, Trent Dilfer. Do you remember the quarterback for the 85 Bears?
Jim McMahon.
Yeah, okay. I knew that. I just want to make sure you knew. I wanted to make sure... okay.
Of all the football knowledge I know, you should know by now. Quarterbacks knowledge is what I got best.
Yeah, and then it's amazing how, like, these teams... with the quarterbacks, nothing against like Jim McMahon or Trent Dilfer, which I think McMahon, he could have had a really good career,
McMahon,
he could have had a real good career with, he had all those injuries and all that. But yeah, you can't. It's amazing how these defenses they play to lead their team. It's hard to do that now. Obviously, we had the 2013 Seahawks and the 2015 Broncos, who we're possibly going to discuss later. But, yeah, man, it's amazing what these teams did with the offense that they had,
No, it's funny you say that because the next one, and again, this isn't necessarily a specific order. These are just great defenses that I personally enjoy. And I guess I'm kind of going from... excluding 85, jumping to 75. I am kind of going up in order and year-wise, but I have the 2002 Buccaneers.
Yes.
Do you know who the quarterback was for that team?
Yes, it was last name Johnson. I forgot his...
Brad Johnson.
Brad Johnson, yes.
It's not a mistake you forgot that name.
I always forget his first name for some reason, but I know his last name.
That's okay.
Yeah. Brad Johnson, that was the one against the Raiders in San Diego.
Yes, and they just absolutely wrecked them.
That was the last... year the Raiders made the playoffs, actually, 2002. Yes.
Yeah, defense, including the postseason, they held 11 of opponents to 10 points or fewer. Opponents only averaged 12.2 points a game when the league average was about 21.7. They also held opposing passers to a 48.4 quarterback rating in a year when the best defense held opposing passer ratings to 68.7. So, that's their one and only Super Bowl in franchise history, but it was a very good Super Bowl. You have the likes of Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Simeon Rice, Rondé Barber. Oh, and don't forget, that's 1 year removed from Tony Dungy being their coach, too. And it was Mike Gruden, but...
Yeah, that was Dungy's team that he built.
He built that team up.
He built.
And Gruden obviously just took him to the next level. But
yeah, because you saw what happened later in Gruden's career with the Buccaneers. It didn't go so well with the team he built. But
yes,
yeah,
definitely. But now moving to, like you said, the 2013
Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, they were pretty impressive, and it's weird because they were good, but you don't remember them being lights out good. They did allow only 14.4 points a game when the league average was all the way up to 23.4. I mean, obviously the league average is probably a little skewed by all those points the Broncos were putting up that year, but we'll get to that in a second. They limited opponents to 5.82 yards per pass attempt. When the and not to mention the worst team in the league at the passing attempt per yards per passing attempt was the Bucs. They alone had 6.19, so they averaged less than the worst team in the league, and they were the best team in the league that year for points allowed, yards allowed, takeaways, and opponent passer ratings. Obviously, just mentioning that, and they went on to beat the best offensive team in many people's opinion in NFL history in the 2013 Broncos.
And that was a blowout. It wasn't a fun game to watch.
I think we'll look back on guys in this defense. They had, they had Michael Bennett and they had Richard Sherman. They had Chris Clemens. They had
Walter Thurman was on that team. Walter Thurman, a.k.a. Dick Mahoney.
so was Brandon Browner, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas,
Troy McDaniel,
and not to mention Super Bowl MVP Malcolm Smith. Even though that wasn't a. But I mean, look at the 7th round pick was Malcolm Smith. The most impressive thing to me was Malcolm Smith. I mean, he really was in a sense in the right place in the right time for the interception and fumble recoveries. But he was a 7th round pick. Richard Sherman and Chancellor were both 5th round picks.
Yeah, it's amazing how they found most of these guys on this defense later in the draft. It is amazing.
And they only had and the weirdest part is they only had 3 players voted to the Pro Bowl that year too.
Yeah,
I mean, if you look back at it now. They have a lot of Pro Bowlers.
Well, now, but back then, that wasn't a lot for this defense. They're probably on this list. They're probably the least star-studded team, but they eventually became stars later. Like Richard Sherman, he's practically one of the best in the league right now. Malcolm Smith, he kind of fell off.
He's with the Raiders right now.
He's with the Raiders right now, but he hasn't had the same success as he did in that game. Even though he's still a really solid player, he didn't become a star. Chancellor, he's
playing pretty good.
He's still really good.
When he's not, he doesn't. When that's one problem with the defense is they don't handle speed well. When they're not dealing with speed, they're great.
Not only the thing
because they're so big.
The thing that's most impressive is that continue. The roster was still intact for a few years after that. Most of that defense
still is generally intact.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen a lot in today's age.
That's true.
Yeah.
Looking back, a couple honorable mentions real quick. The 1969 Vikings, the first heavy legendary Purple People Eaters, led the league in defense 3 times, but that was probably their best season. They only allowed 9.5 points a game, second lowest average in Super Bowl era. They had the likes of Carl Eller, Gary Larson, Alan Page, and Jim Marshall. All of them went to the Pro Bowl. All of them were the 4 defensive line starters there, they were dubbed the Purple People Eaters. Mike Ditka, who played in that era, says that's probably the best team he ever played. You have teams like honorable mentions like the 1969 Chiefs, who had the likes of Bobby Bell, Emmett Thomas, Buck Buchanan, Curly Culp. That was such a great team. You have the 1973 undefeated Dolphins are 72, but the defense stayed intact for the next year. Many called them the no-name defense because there wasn't very many stars. You had Nick Bonaconte. You had all-pro players Dick Anderson, Jake Scott, and Bill Stanfield. Manny Fernandez, who played half of his career blind because he needed glasses. And then you have the likes of the 2008 Steelers as well. They held opponents to 13.9 points per game. in a year that was averaging 22 for the year. They only allowed held opponents to 3.9 yards per play, so they weren't to be looked over either.
Yeah, you can't forget about the 2015 Broncos.
Can't do
you
it.
Just can't do it.
It's hard to look at it in a sense because it's so fresh, but they were the league's best, and they were one of the best of all time, I could say.
Not only that, lucky for Peyton Manning.
Yes.
Lucky for Peyton Manning.
I don't see him winning that.
I don't see him
without
winning.
That
winning. I don't see him winning that many games without that defense.
Well, think about it. The first Super Bowl he won with the Colts, he finally had a defense.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, he needs these defenses.
Yeah. And that was the best defense Peyton Manning has ever had. Lucky for him.
It's been the best defenses anybody's ever had. Lucky for him, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, we're going to take one last quick break, and we're going to get a little bit of news about Doug Baldwin's extension, and we're going to get out of here for the day. Well, for this episode. But we'll talk to you guys in a couple seconds. How long this episode or this commercial takes, I suppose. So we'll be right back at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. Don't go anywhere.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and for our final discussion today, we're going to talk about Doug Baldwin.
Two players at the separate ends of their career.
And we're talking about Corey Redding.
Real quick.
Real quick. We're going to go 0 to 100 real quick. So, all right, so yeah.
Let's do this, Drake.
Yeah, so the Seattle Seahawks signed Doug Baldwin to a 4-year extension, keeping him to 2020.
Worth $46 million, man.
With just over $24 million guaranteed. Mm-hmm. And I knew this was going to happen. I'm not surprised it happened. And I'm really glad that they locked up Baldwin for a couple more years. He had a really good breakout season last year.
And that's another thing to hand to the Seahawks, too, is he was undrafted. That's another player
out of Stanford.
Either late round or
undrafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played under Harbaugh.
Yeah, he had an amazing year last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's just joining, like this as the most impressive nucleus of the team. Russell Wilson, who was a steal where they got him. Sherman obviously was a steal. Earl Thomas was a first rounder, but expected him to play well. Bobby Wagner, Cliff Averill, KJ Wright, Jermaine Kearse, who is another low drafted player. Some young guys, Thomas Rawls, Tyler Lockett.
Thomas Rawls went undrafted.
Exactly. Cam Chancellor, who was a fellow fifth rounder with Richard Sherman, and then you have Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett, obviously pretty good. I don't know when he got drafted though.
But yeah, dude, it's you gotta look at the Seattle Seahawks front office here. They draft so well. They scout players really well, and they get it. Yeah, now most of these players on the roster now are not even first-round picks, which is really amazing. They have some of the best drafts for the past couple of years.
Most of that defense isn't
most of it, yes.
Picks. And Michael Bennett, I'm looking real quick to see when he was drafted, but he was drafted by the Seahawks, but then left. No, he was an undrafted free agent. Look at that, man.
Wow, undrafted free agent.
He was drafted by picked up by them, and then went to the Buccaneers for 4 years.
And then went back.
Yeah. That's impressive. But the Seahawks are doing great stuff.
Yeah, he Baldwin, Dougie Baldwin, or would you like to call him the Deebs?
The independent variable.
Doug Baldwin.
No, that's a rapper that I like. No,
independent variable.
No, yeah, we'll call him Deebs.
The Deebs.
DB.
The DB. The Deepster.
Yeah, Dougie B.
Dougie B.
Yeah.
What
about him?
Besides making up nicknames, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That was funny.
What about him,
he set career highs last year with 78 receptions, 1,069 yards. He also tied for the league lead for 14 touchdowns.
Yes, he did. Do you know who he tied it with?
You tell me.
Allen Robinson
out of Jacksonville Jaguars. Wow.
We've talked about him plenty of other shows.
We might talk about them again, but we don't know.
Deservingly so.
Yeah.
Moving on to another player who's on the end of his career. We'll be real quick with this. 35-year-old Corey Redding has officially retired, calling it quits after 13 NFL seasons after being drafted in the 3rd round by Detroit, spending some time with the Seahawks as well, the Ravens, the Colts, and most recently the Cardinals. He ended with 35.5 career sacks. All 147 games started with the Lions after being drafted.
Yeah, since he got drafted by the Lions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he finished last season on injured reserve with an ankle injury, and they cut him in April, Arizona. Unfortunately, the Lions made him actually the highest-paid defensive tackle in the NFL back in 2007.
7 years.
With his funny...
7-year, $49 million deal.
That at that time was the biggest deal in the NFL for a defensive lineman.
Compared to the deals that happened
this past couple months.
This summer? Wow.
Yeah. But he was always a fun guy to watch, very entertaining, and it's a player that's going to be pretty missed, I would say.
Yeah, he unfortunately never lived up to that big contract. The Lions.
He still played really well.
Yeah.
I always remember
he didn't live up to the hype that he was projected to be. He played solid, but he didn't play like a star.
True.
They thought they were getting.
Yeah, I remember him with.
But he did it. He did
the
have
Colts a lot too.
He did have a solid career.
He did. And that's somebody that we're gonna miss on the NFL fields. But we're gonna have to get going, man. We're running out of our welcome.
But we have another episode for you guys.
Yes, we do have another episode for you guys. So real quick, we want to remind you, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at GSMC_football. You can find us on our website at gsmcpodcast.com, as well as on Facebook at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
You want to tell the good people we're talking about on the show too, or no?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll tell them real quick. So we're going to go ahead and cover Trevon Boykin, undrafted quarterback, now currently with the Seahawks, facing some legal issues. We'll get in next episode. Mike Singletary returning to an NFL sideline, and also we'll be talking about a little bit of update on Eugene Monroe.
Yes.
All right, man. That was like a burp. All right, well, we're going to be getting out of here.
Excuse me.
It's okay. As always, I'm Alex.
And I'm Jeremiah.
And we will see you guys on our next episode.